The BTK Killer, also known as the BTK Strangler or the Bind, Torture, Kill Killer, was one of the most infamous serial killers of all time. He operated in Wichita, Kansas, during the 1970s and 1980 seconds, terrorizing the community with his brutal crimes. Despite the efforts of law enforcement, he remained elusive for many years, evading capture and continuing his reign of terror. However, in 2005, Rader, a seemingly ordinary family man, was finally brought to justice and convicted of 17 murders, with suspicion that he may have been responsible for up to 50 deaths. This chilling case has captivated the public's attention for decades, and it continues to be a source of fascination and horror today. One of the reasons why the BTK Killer case is so captivating is the sheer brutality of his crimes. The BTK Killer was known for his extreme violence, which he inflicted on both his victims and their families. He would often torture his victims before and after death, and he even went as far as to keep souvenirs from his crimes. This level of violence and sadism is truly disturbing, and it makes the case all the more fascinating. Another reason for the enduring interest in the BTK Killer case is the fact that he evaded capture for so long. Despite the severity of his crimes, the police were unable to catch him for many years, which allowed him to continue his killing spree and evade justice. This cat-and-mouse game between the killer and the police is a common theme in crime dramas, but it's even more thrilling when it's based on real-life events. In addition to the mystery surrounding the killer's identity, the case also involves a number of other intriguing elements. For example, the BTK Killer was known to communicate with the police and media outlets, taunting them with information about his crimes and even sending them gifts. He was also known to target certain types of victims, such as young women who resembled his daughter. These personal connections added a new layer of complexity to the case and made it all the more difficult to solve. Before delving into the specifics of the case, it's important to understand the background of serial killers and the motives behind their crimes. Serial killers are typically characterized by their lack of remorse or empathy, as well as their need for control and power over others. They often target vulnerable populations and derive pleasure from the fear and suffering of their victims. The BTK Killer's motives were particularly complex, and he displayed a number of psychological characteristics that are commonly found in serial killers. He was known to be extremely meticulous and organized in his approach to killing, which is a trait that is often associated with those who have a high level of intelligence and planning ability. He also showed signs of being a sadist, deriving pleasure from the pain and suffering of his victims. Additionally, he exhibited signs of being a narcissist, as he seemed to be driven by a need for power and control rather than by any rational or moral motive. To fully understand the BTK Killer case, it's crucial to examine the timeline of events and the key players involved. The case began in 1974 with the murder of a young mother named Catherine Bright. Her body was found in a park, and the police soon discovered that she had been strangled with a pair of pantyhose. Over the next few years, similar cases began to surface in the Wichita area, and it became clear that there was a serial killer on the loose. As the body count rose, the police began to suspect that all of these cases were connected, and they formed a task force to investigate. The BTK Killer continued to elude the police for several years, but he eventually began to taunt them by sending letters and packages containing information about his crimes. He was known to communicate with the police and media outlets, taunting them with information about his crimes and even sending them gifts. He also showed signs of being a narcissist, as he seemed to be driven by a need for power and control rather than by any rational or moral motive. In 1991, the case went cold again until 2004, when a breakthrough finally occurred. A cold case squad was able to obtain DNA evidence from some of the crime scenes, and it was later matched to Rader. On February 25, 2005, Rader was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. He was later convicted of 17 murders and is currently serving 17 consecutive life sentences in prison. Dennis Rader, also known as the BTK Killer, was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on March 9, 1945. His early life was marked by a number of significant events that would shape his behavior and ultimately lead to his infamous crimes. When Rader was just 14 years old, his father abandoned the family, leaving his mother to raise him and his two siblings alone. This event had a profound impact on Rader's development and is believed to have contributed to his future criminal behavior. Without the guidance of a father figure, Rader was left to navigate the world on his own, and he began to exhibit signs of aggression and violence at an early age. Despite his troubled home life, Rader was able to graduate from high school and serve in the U.S. Army Reserves. After his time in the military, he married Carol Sue Coleman in 1968, and the couple had 2 children together. Rader worked as a computer programmer and church council member, which gave him access to a large number of potential victims. He was considered to be a model citizen, and no one suspected that he was capable of the horrific crimes he would later commit. However, beneath the surface, Rader was struggling with a number of personal issues. He had a history of mental illness and was known to be extremely possessive and jealous. In addition, he had a fascination with death and violence, which he explored through his collection of horror movies and books. All of these factors would eventually come to a head, and Rader would find himself drawn to the dark side of human nature. In 1974, Rader killed his first victim, Catherine Bright, and the BTK killing spree began. Now that we have covered the background and motives of the BTK killer, let's move on to the crimes themselves. The BTK killer's crimes were truly horrific, and he showed no remorse or pity for his victims. He was known for his extreme violence and sadism, which he inflicted on both his victims and their families. Rader's first victim was Catherine Bright, a 21-year-old mother who was strangled with a pair of pantyhose. He targeted similar victims in the years that followed, often selecting young women who resembled his daughter. He would lure his victims to secluded areas, where he would bind, torture, and kill them. He would then dispose of their bodies in a manner designed to evade the police. The BTK killer was also known for his communication with the police and media outlets. He would taunt the police by sending letters and packages containing information about his crimes and even send them gifts. He was also known to communicate with the police and media outlets, taunting them with information about his crimes and even sending them gifts. He was also known to communicate with the police and media outlets, taunting them with information about his crimes and even sending them gifts. This behavior was unusual and served to make the case even more perplexing for law enforcement. The BTK killer's crimes shocked and horrified the nation, and he became one of the most infamous serial killers of all time. His reign of terror came to an end in 2005 when he was finally caught and brought to justice. As we have seen, the BTK killer was a complex and disturbing individual whose crimes shocked and horrified the nation. His case remains one of the most famous serial killer cases of all time and has been the subject of numerous documentaries and TV shows. If you're interested in writing an essay on the BTK killer, there are many possible angles you could take. You could explore the psychological profile of the killer and try to understand his motives and behavior. You could examine the investigation and the efforts of law enforcement to catch him, or you could focus on the victims and the impact that his crimes had on them and their families. When writing your essay, be sure to use credible sources and cite them properly. You can find a lot of information about the BTK killer online and in the news. Just be sure to double-check the sources and make sure they are reliable. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Leave any comments or thoughts you have. And as always, see you next time.